Newcomers to the United States often face enormous challenges as they try to adjust to life in a new culture. For many, there's also another concern, the fear of deportation. That struggle was recently told by the New York Times in the form of an unusual comic strip which earned Pulitzer Prizes for the two creators. Election night in America. As Donald Trump swept to victory, two Syrian families were on their way to new lives in the United States, escaping the horror and nightmare of their hometown of Homs in western Syria.
For cartooning, the prize is awarded to Jake Halpern, a freelance writer, and Michael Sloan, a freelance cartoonist working for the New York Times, for an emotionally powerful series.
A powerful series that tells the story of brothers Jamil and Ammar, their wives Ula and Regida, and their children as they struggle to adjust to life in the United States. It captures their hopes, aspirations, and, of course, their fears. Here, for example, a day after arriving, the families discussed their fears of deportation after learning that Donald Trump had won the election. And here they wondered if the FBI would find a man who threatened to behead Ammar and his family. Writer Jake Halpern spent days with the families, learning about their struggles, their experience with prejudice, and their longing for the simple reality of life back in their hometown of Homs, devastated by the Civil War. One of the wives still carries a key for her house back in Homs, hoping for a day when she will return. Writer Jake Halpern and cartoonist Michael Sloan made history with this series, Welcome to the New World. It was the first fully reported, regularly published comic strip in the New York Times. And the two men behind the series of Pulitzer Prize-winning cartoons join me now from New York, Jake Halpern and Michael Sloan. Congratulations to you both, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Wonderful. And Jake, you are the writer in this partnership. Why did you decide this was something you needed to do, and what were you actually trying to achieve in all of this?
I think that what we wanted to do was to tell a story of a refugee family in a way that felt accessible. There are, over 50 million refugees now, the greatest number since World War II. But the numbers sometimes wash over us. So I think the challenge was, is there a way to humanize this story and tell it on a small level that someone who was 10 years old or someone that was, 90 years old could relate to and feel drawn into and just kind of humanize them. And so the idea of doing it as a comic was our kind of entree into doing that.
Right. And Michael, you, of course, are the cartoonist. So how did you come to select these two families to be central to your comic series? And how difficult was it to relay the challenges they confronted through cartoons?
I think Jake can probably speak about how the families were selected better than I can. This was something that he had worked on with a local director of a refugee resettlement agency before I became involved with the project. Do you want to mention that?
One thing that you should know is Michael and I are actually neighbors. We live probably 15 houses away from one another. And the Times had come to us and said, what do you think about doing a story about refugees? And I reached out to our local resettlement agency, and they said, hey, why don't you profile a family from the day they arrive? We have two brothers who are arriving on election day. And at this point, no one knew that Trump was going to become president, which would change the life of refugees. But I said to Michael, hey, why don't we go down to downtown New Haven, where we live, and meet these families? And so he went with me. And it was only the next morning when we woke up and the headlines were that Trump had won that we kind of realized this family landed in one country and effectively woke up in another.
So, Michael, looking back over this comic series, were you surprised by the response to your work? And how did the families deal with their new lives? Were they always comfortable with sharing their experiences with you both?
I didn't meet with the families as frequently as Jake did. Jake met with them every week, sometimes more than once a week, to do the reporting and the fact-checking. And the sense that I had is that they trusted you. They felt very comfortable with you. I would meet with them once every few months or so, and I certainly enjoyed those experiences. They seemed comfortable with me, too. As far as the reaction, it was very nice hearing from family and friends who were reading the comic in the Times online and in print, and walking around town and having people say, oh, I really appreciated this particular aspect of this episode, which made me realize that people were getting deeply involved with it in a way that I felt was important. It seemed like they were appreciating the experience of the family and the way that we were presenting the story.
There was one really beautiful moment. The families had to go to a kind of Welcome to America crash course. It's kind of an amazing thing. It's like everything you need to know about America in 3 hours. And Michael and I both went, and on that particular day, Michael brought his sketchbook, and he was sketching as the event was going on, and then the kids in the family were coming and looking over Michael's shoulder as he was sketching it, and kind of seeing, in a way, the comic being created in real time. And that was really cool, because the kids and the whole family were kind of in on the process on that occasion.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier, when you said, you know, there are so many millions of refugees throughout the world, to actually get it down to a couple of families does allow people to relate more directly with those people and with their experiences. So how are those two families coping right now? And do you plan to do more work with them in the future?
Yeah, we are expanding our New York Times series into a book that will be much larger in scope. It will start with the families' lives in Jordan and, in fact, in Syria, and then take them right up to the present moment. So we're still in the process of following them and documenting their lives. They're doing pretty well. It's interesting. It's been about 1.5 years now, and what you're seeing is the classic immigrant family situation where the kids are rapidly becoming American and the parents much more slowly so. And the teenage kids are almost fluent in English now. And I think there's almost like Moses in the Promised Land kind of thing, where the younger generation will kind of realize the dream, and the older one maybe less likely. And I think it's kind of bittersweet for the parents. So I think they're doing okay, but of course it's inherently difficult.
It is, and I think when you tell the story about one of the mothers still having the key to her house back home in Homs, it really does hit home to how difficult that whole experience is for so many of these refugees. Jake Halpern and Michael Sloan, thank you so much, and congratulations again for incredible work there. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.